final. But it was a hard pre-season, but just enough so that I gradually got fitter and fitter. And
now the 5AA forecast.
Add some colour to your wardrobe. Visit theuniqueyou.com.au. Gorgeous fashion for curvaceous women.
Sunny, a top of 24 after getting down to 9 overnight. 29 and sunny tomorrow, 33 on both Saturday and Sunday. Mostly sunny for the public holiday on Monday, up to 35. Partly cloudy, 29 on Tuesday, before we drop back to 20 on Wednesday. More news as it happens on 5AA.
Peter Godfrey on 1395, Adelaide's 5AA.
And at 6 minutes past 5, it is 8 degrees at the moment. Let's head across the ditch, see what's happening across in New Zealand. Selwyn Manning joins us from eveningreport.nz. Selwyn, how are you this morning?
Yeah, very good, Peter. Temperatures are probably a little bit warmer at the moment, but then we're a few hours ahead. We changed to daylight saving on the weekend, and also we had our warm weather, which I think came across guys that you had last week. We had that in the last few days, and it's a little bit cloudy and a little bit cooler today.
Oh, okay, so you've already gone to daylight saving. You go a week early, that's right.
Yeah, last Sunday morning, all the clocks changed over, and
ours switches this weekend, so then we'll be back on par again.
Back on in sync.
In sync.
Put it that way.
Yeah. And I don't know if you caught our report there. We've got 35 degrees coming up next Monday here.
Wow. Gee.
Summer's hitting with a vengeance. We got 33 degrees over the weekend, 35 on Monday, but then Wednesday we'll be back down to 20. So go figure.
Well, you guys will be thinking, how do the Kiwis do it? I mean, we haven't pushed over the 20 degrees yet. Sitting there with these cold, southerly kind of wind changes half the time. But we saw blue sky for 3 days, and we said, thank you, Australia, for that one.
Oh, well, which of the forecasts do you want from us? Do you want the 35 degrees or do you want the 20 degrees? Which we send you?
Well, by the time the 35 degrees gets across, it'll probably be 20, so that'd be good. Thanks.
Okay, all right.
That'll work out well.
We'll push it your way. Hey, we've been talking a bit about this American singer Chris Brown, and the federal government here notifying him of an intention to refuse his visa on character grounds. This is all regarding domestic violence conviction he had over in the United States. You guys having a similar debate over there, are you?
Yes, exactly the same. It's almost a mirror thing. There's a couple of things that have come through. Like, for example, yesterday, Duncan Garner, he's a prominent broadcaster here in New Zealand on Radio Live. He put out on their Twitter a photograph, the victim photograph of Rihanna immediately after she'd been beaten by Mr. Brown in 2009, wasn't it? Now, that's a horrific facial photograph of the beating that she suffered there. The other thing too is that what's going around here, Peter, is if Mr. Brown is so sincere that he has turned his life around and he can be a positive role model for change for someone who's been violent and is now not, well, will he change? Will he perhaps rule out performing some of those songs that advocate rape and violence in his concerts? And that's something perhaps that is a meaningful part of this whole debate as to whether or not he has really turned his life around, or is it just PR schmooze that he's partaking in?
Okay. That's interesting. I mean, I'm not familiar with any of his work, and I wasn't aware that he is some of his music's got lyrics like that. But yeah, that's a really good point. That if he is genuinely remorseful of his previous actions,
I mean, we're not being prudish about this either. This whole issue came up, remember, way back in the early 90s when Ice-T was going to be, touring, and his album out at that time, Cop Killer, with some fairly explicit lyrics around that, put him, offside. But some of the lyrics of Chris Brown, I'm not trying to compare the two from the point of view of which one's worse, but certainly some of the lyrics of Chris Brown's songs that are targeting women or those who are in a more vulnerable state certainly make you want to turn the page pretty quick.
Yeah, okay. That puts a different complexion on it indeed.
So is he going to perform them? Yes. Is he going to perform them? No. That would give an indication of his sincerity.
Yeah. Well, that's the big question, I guess, whether these tweets he's made were actually genuine contrition on what he's done, or just the naughty little boy who says, "I won't ever do it again." And you got to guess which way it goes. Oh, we've just lost Selwyn there because got Selwyn on his mobile this time. His Skype's not working, and that mobile's dropped out. We'll just try and get him back quickly. 10 minutes past 5. We're talking to Selwyn Manning. We're trying to talk to Selwyn Manning, editor of eveningreport.nz. And we got I think we got him back. We got you back, Selwyn?
Yes.
You just
we're having phone problems, aren't we?
Yeah, you just disappeared into the ether there. We better get on to some other stories then before we lose you again. Is there a bit of a rift forming between Australia and New Zealand? We're kicking a few Kiwis out, it seems.
Yes, it does, and it seems like John Key, our Prime Minister, is trying to juxtaposition himself to be, hey, I'm the senior leader on the Australasian patch here, so please listen to me for a change. That seems to be the tone of it, but it is a serious issue here. And to just go over it here, New Zealand's Prime Minister, John Key, he will raise Australia's deportation policy with Malcolm Turnbull when the two meet for their first Trans-Tasman leaders meeting. Now, the date of that's a little bit elusive at the moment, but we understand that will probably take place fairly soon. Now, both New Zealand's Foreign Minister, John Key, spoke this week to your Foreign Minister, Julie Bishop, basically when they're all over there at the United Nations General Assembly in New York at the moment. Now, it's all about this, Peter. Last week it was revealed that up to 80 New Zealanders in recent months have been deported by Australia to detention camps, including around 20 to 28 Kiwis. Last week alone that we were flown to detention facility on Christmas Island. Early this week, news reports also revealed how and these numbers are, got to tighten up yet, but around 200 New Zealanders in total have been detained or deported since the new policies were established by Australia over 1 year ago. Now, that policy is New Zealanders and Australians, we'll just put a condition on here, while the New Zealanders and Australians have the right to travel and live in each other's countries, the new rules in Australia mean that any foreign national who has served more than 1 year in jail can be deported. Okay. Now, the view here, Peter... Is
that 1 year in jail here, or if they discover they'd served more than a year in jail back in New Zealand?
Well, that is being determined by lawyers at the moment as to the definitions of that. I'm not privy to what the outcomes are going to be. Those are some of the litigating or mitigating elements of the challenges to this. But the view here in New Zealand is, and it's quite a simple one, really, that it's Australia's prerogative, obviously, what it does with people and how it handles their deportation or visas, or et cetera, et cetera. But if Australia is going to deport a New Zealander, then over here it's believed that they should be deported to New Zealand, not detained on the Australian continent or Christmas Island or anywhere else. And that's pretty much where the New Zealand government is heading, although it does appear John Key is pushing the envelope more general on the deportation issue relating to New Zealanders and seeing whether or not there should be something that observes our closer intergovernment relationship, if you like, or our country-to-country relationships.
Okay, so there's no similar legislation in New Zealand to deport Australians? No. It's all this side.
Obviously, New Zealand deports people, but nothing like this. And also the way it's handled. Say an Australian citizen committed a murder here. That likely, and was apprehended and sentenced, the likely consequence of that would be serving time in New Zealand prison and deported back to Australia on release. There's a situation relating to an Indian national in exactly that situation at the moment here in New Zealand. As soon as he's concluded his sentence, a 15-year minimum imprisonment on that one, he'll be back in India. But so there are that type of thing. But as far as this policy is concerned, according to news reports on Radio New Zealand, John Key spoke to Julie Bishop yesterday, and John Key said his message was, and I quote here, blunt. The key part of his message suggested that, and I quote here, John Key said on Radio New Zealand, a special relationship between New Zealand and Australia, and you can challenge that relationship to a degree when you see New Zealanders being treated in this way, he said, end of quote. Now, he also added that there is an Anzac bond and an Anzac spirit. That surely means, John Key says, that New Zealanders would get different treatment on these issues than countries from people from other countries. So that's pretty much the New Zealand government side. Like I said at the beginning of the bulletin, Peter, John Key's intention is to speak directly to this point with Malcolm Turnbull, and it's getting quite a lot of coverage on both sides of the Tasman by look of it.
Is the really sensitive issue the deportation, or is the really sensitive thing about the detainment in places like Christmas Island, or is it a bit of both?
There's a bit of both, because what came to light earlier this week was a young New Zealander, 23-year-old, the Australian government, federal government, to look into that death to get more clarity on exactly what happened. Apparently, the individual, the New Zealander there, he was in solitary confinement, and so the New Zealand government wants to know what the circumstances were that led to that, and also what the conditions were with him being a New Zealander. Julie Bishop has agreed to a government investigation into that. She said reportedly on the ABC News Network in Australia, Julie Bishop said and admitted that she discussed this whole issue generally with the Prime Minister John Key and also with our Foreign Minister Murray McCully, and she just said and acknowledged that there is no closer relationship than Australia and New Zealand, and she thinks it's appropriate, as the quote goes here, to consider this matter as Prime Minister Key has asked us to. Now, what she was referring to there was the death in custody of the Kiwi.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay. I wonder if this is this, I don't know, whether this is all sort of a consequence of the sort of toughening up of laws here in regard to other foreign nationals that, that go off to, dual nationals that go off to, support ISIS or things like that, whether this is an inadvertent side effect of that Kiwis have been sort of caught up in it all too.
Yeah, it may be. And there are other things too that I think what John Key will use here is this will be the sharp end of the wedge. There are issues where after a particular date, like it's about 12 years ago, my detail on the time frame is a little bit vague there, but New Zealanders who have settled in Australia prior to like the year 2000 or something around there, seem to have them and their children are able to enjoy the privileges of living in Australia, like with the social security, etc., etc. Those that settled in Australia after that particular date, even their children, arguably in some circumstances, even though they were born in Australia, are not treated in the same way as Australian citizens, put it that way. So there's quite a lot of pressure over this side of the ditch for our governments in the last 8 years to actually address some of those inequalities. Of course, not as many Australians come to New Zealand to live, obviously, than New Zealanders going to Australia. And it may have been that when that particular policy came in under John Howard, that the rate of immigration from New Zealand to Australia was well out of kilter. The sum total now is that more New Zealanders have come back and are staying in New Zealand than are going to Australia. So the actual pressure impact of that flow is a more equitable one, and it might be that policy is changed on that basis, as well as the as John Key has underscored here, the Anzac spirit.
Yeah, indeed. Selwyn Manning's with us, editor of eveningreport.nz. So we'll just have a quick break, then we might talk about that other great big sporting competition that's going on besides our AFL Grand Final this weekend, the Rugby World Cup. So we'll take a look at that with you in just a moment. Selwyn Manning from eveningreport.nz with us, 20 minutes past 5.
5AA Breakfast.
Yesterday in court, they tendered victim impact statements. This accident devastated our family. However, it was an accident. Declan was Braden's mate. Braden would not want Declan to be in prison for this incident. So this family intervened on behalf of the guy who killed their son and said to Judge Sulio, don't jail him. And the judge didn't.
David Penberthy, Mark Easton and Jane Riley. Weekday mornings from 6 on 1395. Adelaide's 5AA.
At Pain Away, we're about the pain. The whole pain, nothing but the pain. Everyday Aussies to elite professional athletes are using easy-to-apply Pain Away arthritis and sports creams and sprays. At Pain Away, we believe so much in all our pain relief products that we offer a 100% money-back guarantee on all products purchased. So if you suffer joint or muscular pain, try Pain Away.
Pain Away products are available in all leading pharmacies across Australia. Use only as directed. Always read the label. If pain persists, see your healthcare professional.
Only Simplicity Funerals offers the Simplicity Guarantee. It's our promise to you that we'll always better the lowest quote around. And if you're not completely satisfied with our service, we'll refund our fees. It's that simple. For a funeral that's simply respectful and simply affordable, call us anytime on 1300 556 222 or visit simplicityfunerals.com.au. Terms and conditions apply.
Steve, you've been using Revis to control downy mildew in your vineyard. What's the main reason?
It's reasons, Tony. Revis is highly effective and efficient, saves me time and money. Apart from the real cost compared to copper sprays, Revis needs to be sprayed less often, freeing us up to do other things. And I don't have to worry about rain washing copper off the vines. With Revis, it's peace of mind.
That's a compelling story. Thanks, Steve.
No worries.
To see the complete Revis story, go to revus.com.au.
Agostino Mitsubishi are best on ground for Mitsubishi Triton. Right now, Agostino Mitsubishi has run out deals on Triton, ready to go at $28,990. That's right, Mitsubishi Triton at just $28,990. Limited stock all ready for immediate delivery. Agostino Mitsubishi, best on ground for ridiculous prices on new Triton. We love them. 151 Main North Road, Nailsworth. AgostinoMitsubishi.com.au.
Peter Godfrey, talking Adelaide on 1395 5AA.
And let's talk Rugby World Cup. Selwyn Manning, editor of eveningreport.nz, is with us. Selwyn, so we're continuing on. I mean, your team, the New Zealand team, the Aussies, were in different pools, but on the tables, we're looking pretty evenly matched at the moment.
Yeah, of course, Australia's in the pool debtors, calling it, Peter, and some fascinating stuff coming up. Obviously, over this side of the ditch, it may surprise you to know that most of the coverage is actually focusing right at the moment on the Australia form.
Really?
And
okay.
There's been a big push. Even one of the radio stations was pushing on its website saying, please get in behind Australia over this England-Australia match. Here's why. Here's your chance to support Australia, which is, it's playing on the Kiwi-Australian rivalry there, particularly in our sports kind of thing now. But what it is saying there is, that New Zealand press here is getting stuck into the English team. They're just actually relegating it down into bizarre kind of stuff. I'll just bring up on the website here the New Zealand Herald, Chris Ratu. Now, Peter, Chris Ratu is a sports writer of some prominence here, and he's controversial often. He'll say it how it is. He's the one who picked that the Wallabies, the Australian rugby team, was going to beat the All Blacks over there in Sydney a couple of months ago or a month ago. Now, Chris Ratu also predicted that the All Blacks would consequently the week later, beat the Wallabies. He's often on form. Now, here's got a piece out here, and he's saying, why the Wallabies will thrash England. And one of the things, and just to sum up what Chris Ratu was saying, and remember, he's a specialist rugby writer over here. He knows his rugby, absolutely. And he says the bookies have England as the favourites, but they're calculating with a hole in their head because England have a bolt through their neck. They are the Frankenstein of world rugby, a scientific experiment with an ugly result. He goes on to say their creators have just enough rugby understanding to put something together with excruciating detail, but not enough to make it work. Now, he is pointing out, too, in that piece that, while Australia has got a couple of significant players that are out with injury, that, really it's going to actually sort this English team out. Now, this is obviously what they're talking about is the game coming up between the Wallabies and England at Twickenham in London. And, that will no doubt really set up Pool A for Australia if you guys come through with a win there. Remember that Wales and England had thrashed it out last week, and Wales beat England by a couple of points right at the end, and it was seen that England, its arrogance, lost at that game. Now, there was a poll on the New Zealand Herald site this week, and it's asking people who's going to win Sunday morning's game between Australia and England. 70% are saying Australia, 30% obviously are saying England. That's out of about 3,800 votes online. Now, it's not scientific, but obviously, of those that read the article and following such things, that's the view over
bit of a gauging of yeah. And is that support for Australia all sort of motivated by a desire that Australia and New Zealand will meet off further down the track?
Yeah, I think the hope is that it'll be an Australasian type of final. That's the hope there. Seeing Australia navigating through this, if you look at the fixture stats and things like that, Australia, most points scored so far is Ireland with 94, Australia 93, All Blacks have scored 84 points, Scotland 84 and Wales 82 points. So you can see where the form as far as the running game is concerned. It's a little bit skewed there too because New Zealand All Blacks have come up against in their pool, a fairly easy pool, and had a really good workout against Namibia the other day. They come up against Georgia. The minnows in Europe, this weekend, but nothing is comparing to the games in Pool A. And I think a lot of people in New Zealand are really enjoying where you guys are and how you're positioned. Of course, New Zealand in the quarterfinals, it's expected. Obviously, it's going to get through there. It'll be facing off either against Ireland or France in the quarterfinals, the way things are showing up here at the moment. And that will be obviously a really good game then. But that will be the first real hard workout that the All Blacks get to face. Australia, well, whoever gets through this Pool A is seen to be, they're going to be a team on form, and you guys are at the top of that at the moment.
Well, we'll have to follow it in more detail. We've got our grand final this weekend. We'll get that out of the way, and then we can, all eyes on the rugby.
Get in behind it. It is looking pretty good, though. You guys are ranked in the rugby second in the world at the moment behind the All Blacks, and if that was the final, man, that would be something else.
Oh, wouldn't it? Yeah, that'd be great. All right, Selwyn, thanks for joining us this morning. Have a great day. Have a great week. We'll catch you on breakfast tomorrow morning after 6.